Today, President Biden is set to sign an executive order aimed at leveraging federal resources to expand access to voting. It comes on the 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, when 600 peaceful protesters marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. They were led by the late Congressman John Lewis, urging for the passage of the Voting Rights Act before being met with violence from white police officers. The president this morning noting now, even half a century later, despite all the progress made, the fight for voting rights for all Americans is still an ongoing battle.
The legacy of the march in Selma is that while nothing can stop free people from exercising their most sacred power as a citizen, there are those who will do anything they can to take that power away.
And joining me now, Congresswoman Terry Sewell, a Democrat from Alabama. I believe from Selma specifically, right? That's home.
It is. It's my hometown. Welcome to my hometown. You know, today is the 56th anniversary of the Bloody Sunday, and the temerity, the audacity of ordinary Americans standing up and making our country live up to its ideals of equality and justice for all. It's been a bittersweet day for me. It is the first time in my lifetime that John Lewis has not been here on this day. You know, John and those foot soldiers would come back year after year after year. I'm not only in my hometown of Selma, but I'm also a lifelong member of the historic Brown Chapel AME Church here in Selma, which is where the marchers gathered before they left from Selma to Montgomery. So as a little child singing in the choir, I would see C.T. Vivian, Joseph Laurie, John Lewis, Coretta Scott King, and now one by one they're all disappearing. But I think it's really important upon us who are beneficiaries, direct beneficiaries of the movement, to pick up their baton and carry it on.
Look, they are disappearing, but as you said, there's you, and you are definitely perpetuating this fight, this struggle. You mentioned John Lewis. I want to take a listen to something that he said 6 years ago in 2015 at the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. Take a look at this.
People often ask me, why do you come back? What purpose does it serve? We come to Selma to be renewed. We come to be inspired. We come to be reminded that we must do the work that justice and equality calls us to do.
If he were here today, what do you think his message would be?
I think his message will be the same message, that we must never give up. We must never give in. We must keep our eyes on the prize. You know, I never thought that the cause for which John Lewis and Hosea Williams bludgeoned on a bridge, as John would say, he shed a little blood on the bridge in Selma for the equal right to vote. But I never thought that I would 56 years later, be the member of Congress representing Selma, Alabama. And now their cause is my cause too. Congressional action is what is required in order to put the full enforcement provisions back into the VRA. So old battles have become new again. And I think that it's important that those tactics, those same strategies, that we exercise them now today.
Of voting. We've seen an unprecedented insurrection in our capital and a brutal attack on our democracy on January the 6th. And a never before seen effort to ignore, undermine, and undo the will of the people. And to think of that, and yet it's been followed by an all-out assault on the right to vote in state legislatures all across the country. You know, during the current legislative sessions, elected officials in 43 states have already introduced over 250 bills to make it harder for Americans to vote. We cannot let them succeed. Last week, the House of Representatives passed H.R. 1, the For the People Act of 2021. This is a landmark piece of legislation that is urgently needed to protect the right to vote and the integrity of our elections and to repair and strengthen our democracy. I hope the Senate does its work so I can sign it into law. I also urge Congress to fully restore the Voting Rights Act, named in John Lewis's honor. Today, on the anniversary of Bloody Sunday, I'm signing an executive order to make it easier for eligible voters to register to vote and improve access to voting. Every eligible voter should be able to vote and have that vote counted. If you have the best ideas, you have nothing to hide. Let the people vote. And I'll close with this. A few days before he passed, Jill and I spoke with John, Congressman Lewis. But instead of answering our concerns about him, we talked about how you doing, John. He asked me to stay focused on the work left undone to heal and to unite this nation around what it means to be an American. That's the God's truth. John wouldn't talk about his pending death or his concerns. He said, we've just got to get this done. That we're all created equal. We all deserve to be treated equally. On this day of reflection, please, let's stay focused on the work ahead. Let's remember all those who came before us as a bridge to our history so we don't forget its pain, and as a bridge to our future so we never lose hope. May God bless their memory. May God bless you all. And may God protect our forces.
A message from President Joe Biden on this anniversary, this 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, working to improve access to voting and expand the right to vote.
America never been great for black people. Them people must don't know their history.
The Negro was probably the most powerful political group in this country.
That's something I didn't learn with my liberal education.
Negro minority, so-called Negro minority. But we get less from our potential political power than any other group in this country, primarily because the Negro leader,
Which I don't know who the Negro leader is right now because it sure ain't Barack Obama. You can't even find that nigga right now. He ain't nowhere to be found unless you go to Bruce Springsteen channel.
he sells us out. The Negro political leader sells us out for crumbs. He thinks that the white politician, the only thing the white politician has to do is make a few appointments, give big jobs to big Negroes, and this is supposed to solve the problem, while the masses of Negroes are still living in the slums and the ghettos, still unemployed and still suffering poor school facilities.
And just because you voted Joe Biden in don't mean shit gonna change. Your ass still gonna be broke. You voted out the person that was looking out for black people's interests. Now you got Joe Biden in office who don't give a damn about black folks. Next!
Most of us know our country fought a civil war in the 1860s.
But most black people must have forgot what that war was fought over.
But less is known about what came afterward.
Something else I didn't learn with my liberal education.
The chaotic, exhilarating, and ultimately devastating period known as Reconstruction.
We damn near going through Reconstruction right now.
It was a moment of profound change.
We damn near going through a moment of profound change right now. Matter of fact, we is going through a moment of profound change.
With promises of citizenship and equal rights for all.
And that a bitch, Joe Biden is promising illegal immigrant citizenship and promising black people equal rights. He got both of them covered. That lying son of a bitch.
One of the greatest achievements of Reconstruction was granting black men the right to vote.
What's going to be one of the Democrats' greatest achievements is getting illegal immigrants the right to vote. If they achieve that, the Republican Party is over.
In 1867 alone, over 80% of all the black men in the former Confederate states registered to vote.
And damn near 80% of the immigrant population is bringing their ass over here so they can vote Democrat. But back then it wasn't about immigrant rights, it was about black people rights. And people say America never been great for black people. Them people must don't know their history.
3 years later, Hiram Revels was elected the first black man to serve in the United States Senate.
And that was 50, 60, 80, or 100 years before the first black Democrat ever served as senator.
Joseph Rainey became the first black United States congressman.
Also a black Republican.
Their election paved the way for more than 2,000 black office holders.
And not a single one of them was a Democrat. because the Democrats was racist then.
who served at every level of government during Reconstruction.
So the Republicans had a black man in every level of government before the Democrats had a black man even in government. Ain't that a bitch? The Democratic Party have tricked black people into voting Democrat, and damn near Democrat only.
Pew Center studies show that a whopping 93% of African-American voters cast a vote for Democrat Barack Obama for president.
And if you part of that other 7%, you either a coon or a sellout.
And that was not an anomaly. Since the 1930s, African-Americans have voted Democratic in large majorities ranging from 60% to 95%.
Until Donald Trump came into office, that number dropped because Donald Trump is still in the Democrats' minorities.
Those African-Americans who did identify as Republican were often perceived as sellouts who were not committed to racial justice and empowerment.
Well, you can't say the first black Republicans were sellout because they was fighting for the people.
There are not many moments in recorded human history where a group that was so subordinated would, within the space of a decade, actually be integrated into the highest echelons of political society.
Went from the slave house to the Congress house.
But the momentum wouldn't last.
Because white Democrats wouldn't let it.
Black men's access to the ballot box, along with other key rights gained during Reconstruction, were rolled back systematically throughout the South.
Because the Democrats had to stop it. Because it was black Republicans that had more power than the average white man. That was a Democrat, of course.
In 1875, near the end of Reconstruction, the 44th Congress included 7 black House members and a United States Senator. By 1900, only one remained. Congressman George Henry White of North Carolina.
That's because of the laws the Democrats put in to either kill blacks or strip them from their position.
By the time George H. White leaves office in 1901, he literally turns the light off on national black political leadership.
And the Democrats scared black people into not turning them lights back on.
No one will come behind him for an entire generation.
And when they finally did come back around, they damn sure didn't come back around as a Democrat.
One of the cruel ironies of Reconstruction is that black people could claim certain rights in the 1870s that they would have to fight to reclaim in the 1960s.
Meaning we had them rights all along. We were just ignorant of the law and our rights. There's a lot of black people that white liberals is trying to scrub out of black history, like Booker T. Washington.
In the early 20th century, Washington's approach, with its focus on pragmatism, middle-class morality, and an emphasis on economic advancement over political solutions, came under fire from NAACP founder W.E.B. Du Bois.
W.E.B. Du Bois was a damn hater,
who repudiated Washington's accommodationism and called for persistent agitation as the way to liberty,
which got black people nowhere.
The majority of African Americans followed Du Bois's lead, shifting to the political left through the decades that followed.
But the damage done was permanent.
With the advent of the civil rights movement, black conservatives were pushed even further to the margins. But for those who did retain their affiliation with the Republican Party, their political philosophy was generally defined by either a strong social conservatism or a strong opposition to government interventions in black life, or both.
Meaning black conservatives want a small government to work hard and take care of their family, because that's what black conservatives do.
Those prominent black conservatives who rose to power during the Reagan administration, people like Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, former Secretaries of State Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell,
who Democrats all label coons and sellouts. Trust me, I know I was a Democrat and I was calling them coons and sellouts too. I was brainwashed. I didn't know all 3 of them was not sellouts, but they was free thinkers.
Shared with their white Republican counterparts, a social conservatism and a mistrust of government intervention and the welfare state, leading to their opposition to the very programs that many others within the African American community credit with breaking down barriers and advancing racial justice. Programs like affirmative action, which Justice Thomas opposes.
Because the shit don't work.